We all go a little mad sometimes.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
They're here.
Hi,
Hello, hello, hello. See what I did there?
I'm one sleepy faggot, and I am in the sequel.
But only because you weren't in the first one.
But I'm in the sequel.
And I am the teetering edge of the possibly homophobic bus that falls over the canyon cliff every single fucking time Freddy's on screen. And unfortunately, I am in the sequel this time, which I don't want to be. And I'm Nathan, so hi.
And you're listening to
They're
Here podcast.
A discussion
Disembowelment,
of all things horror,
fear, and the macabre. Corn on the macabre, girl. So, our first sequel.
First sequel, oh my god. Nightmare on Elm Street, Dose, Freddy's Revenge. I.e.
Freddy's Revenge.
I.e. the gay Krueger
The gay
movie.
one.
So of course we are continuing Pride Month. We are making sure that we are continuing our tradition here for our monthly due of faggotry and lesbianitry, and yeah.
Yeah, so do you want to just kind of like jump right in?
Yeah, I have lots to say about this film. There's so much. Now, I know that you sort of like have seen this film more than I have. I think I've only seen this film maybe 3, maybe 4 times, and I watched it 2 days ago, and that's the first time I've seen it in, I think, Jesus, maybe 3-4 years. It's been a long time since I seen it last. And when I went through it, when I actually like seen most of the stuff, I was like, oh my god, how did I miss this stuff the first time around?
I actually think that this is the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie I saw. I think partially because it was like my uncle, right? I think I've mentioned this on previous podcasts, like was like a big like VHS collector, and this was my favorite like Nightmare on Elm Street cover. It's like it's Jesse with the gigantic Freddy claw, and like Lisa like have like with the crow. It's like very artsy. It's and like they do a thing. I actually have them all behind me, just there. There's a thing that they do on the Nightmare on Elm Street posters where Freddy is never just Freddy. He's always like partially in like some kind of Dali fantasy where it's like there's an eyeball floating off here and there's like red like lightning, and this poster I think like as a kid was my favorite like Nightmare on Elm Street poster. Like it had like the giant like Freddy glove. That was like kind of organic, kind of very similar to what we see in New Nightmare. And like the lightning and the crow and like Jesse's face is like partially Freddy, which like I really, really loved. I thought this was like the most interesting poster.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, I think this was like also the first one that I watched, which explains who I am today. Nightmare on Elm Street 2 made me gay.
God damn it, I always knew that was happening. For those like painted posters, they were, I think we even said this before, like how we would go into like X-Vision and things like that, and we would just like be drawn to these covers for how like sort of surreal they were. And the artist who actually did paint those, Matthew Joseph Peak, like he is absolutely like unbelievable. Like this sort of surreal nightmare quote unquote quality of these paintings, they were paintings, and they're just amazing. And like you said, like Freddy is not Freddy, he's sort of more zombie skeleton, like with finger knives, and then like
Yeah, sort of abstract nightmare creature.
yeah, I absolutely love it. I think these paintings are just so like I literally have them in front of me, and I'm I'm looking at them again. I'm just like, oh, so good. And I'm still looking at the first one with Nancy in the bed with the hair all like sprayed out and around her, and the knives, and it's just so cool. And like yeah, but actually speaking of like the poster and things, this is the first time. Oh yeah, this is actually the first time that they changed the title card. So the original New Line Cinema kind of thick A Nightmare on Elm Street,
the red like scan,
yeah, it's like completely disappeared, and it's changed into this very kind of thin like almost as if they're kind of slashes things, and it's so like obviously 80s now, like how it just like transforms, like the series just kind of obviously takes a turn, a very left turn with this film, but we'll get into it. We'll get into it. Very left turn, a liberal turn, I should say.
I was literally just gonna say, yeah, yeah, very much so. This is very much so kind of like where the Nightmare series kind of like starts to like establish itself. And like I feel like these first three movies, because like we are definitely going to cover the Dream Warriors on this fucking podcast. I like we'll eventually get up to like New Nightmare and like the remake and all this kind of stuff, because like this is like one of my preferred series, you know, like the Nightmare series. Bow down to Daddy Craven, you know, R.I.P.
Worship.
But yeah, this series has managed to just kind of like keep my attention over the years. Like this is the one I was drawn to, besides like Scream or whatever like that. Like that kind of goes without saying. But like I was not like a Jason person, like a Friday the 13th person. Oh, well, I guess I was like kind of exclusively just not a Friday the 13th person. Like I really enjoyed like Halloween and like. Well, to me, genuinely, like, to me, the reason I enjoyed this movie and the reason I enjoyed, like, Halloween and all this kind of stuff, or, like, this series, is because, like, they do something kind of, like, vastly different each time, you know? Like, they switch it up. And, like, especially with this movie, it's so different tonally to the first movie. And I think a lot of people were kind of like, what the fuck? But I'm like, that's kind of very telling as to, like, what the series would become, you know? Like, we don't get Freddy, like, outrightly, like, haha, like, making jokes in this movie just yet. Like, that will come along in Dream Warriors with, you know, like, Welcome to Prime Time, bitch, where he, like, pulls her into the TV.
Yeah.
But, like, this very much so kind of establishes, like, who Freddy would become.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, because I did notice that a lot of the lore that was just only sort of hinted at in the first film, like a bunch of us parents just hunted him down, he's a filthy child murderer, blah blah blah. But in this film, the lore is explored a little bit more. Like, we find out it was a power plant that he worked in, all of this kind of weird freaky stuff that really kind of sort of sets the stage further for more exploration in the subsequent sequels. And then the weird kind of prequel that also weirdly happened. But it's there's loads of kind of huge setups that from this moment onwards, like I said, it takes a huge kind of left turn, because like even with the first thing, like Freddy does start to use those kind of puns with, you know, that he's become synonymous with. Like, he does say to Jesse, like, you've got the brain, you've got the bronze, you've got the body, I've got the brain, or something like that. And then he like rips off the side of his skull to show like a pulsating bloody
I love
brain.
that. I remember very, very vividly like watching that scene as a kid and just like, fuck yes. like no, for real though, it's like that's one of my favorite scenes. And this is one of those movies, like, as a kid that like freaked me out, but I could not like stop watching it. Like, I was obsessed. Not only because I like fully got to feel like a naked man in this movie, but also just because like this movie is so good.
It is.
You know what I mean? Like, the effects are great. Even that with the scalp rip looks so good. And like, I know like like now knowing kind of like being into like effects and stuff like that, I know that like that's a very simple effect, but like it pays off. It works super, super well. And in this movie, we actually get like a switch up on the Freddy makeup. And like movie to movie, there is like slight variance and stuff like this, but this Freddy seems less burn victim and more kind of like creature-ish. Like he's more kind of like wet looking, you know what I mean? Like he's kind of like gooey. And I actually only noticed it this time that Freddy doesn't wear a glove in this movie. There's no gloves.
He has
The
literal
claws straight out of the hand.
finger knives. Yeah, they grow out of his fingers. Yeah. He does, I got to
I
admit
love
there,
that.
he looks very gooey and wet, and like even there was a scene where Freddy is grabbing Meryl Streep by the neck.
Quote, not Meryl Streep.
Not Meryl Streep actress, yeah.
Quote,
And
as close to Meryl Streep as we could get.
they were literally just like going down the line of it, like, is that Meryl Streep? No, okay, she looks like her. Let's hire her. That's her. Yeah.
No, it's Meryl Streep. You know.
Is it the discount dollar bin Meryl Streep? Okay, we'll take her. That sounds terrible. We shouldn't say that about her.
You know, I love her in this movie. I actually like.
Yeah. It was a scene where Freddy sort of like. It's just after his transformation again into Freddy, where Jesse becomes Freddy again, and like he's doing this taunting thing with his voice, and he's sort of holding her, but he's stroking her with one finger knife, and like his hand is like all wet and gooey and shit, and I'm just like, oh no, get away from me. I don't like that. Oh, it's gross.
Yeah. So like just like kind of jumping into this movie also follows a different formula than any of the other Nightmare movies, wherein that this is a possession movie.
Yes.
As well as a Nightmare movie.
Yes, very true.
And it's weird. I'm very much so like kind of like turn my nose up at possession movies, because I'm like, if you've seen The Exorcist, you've seen them all.
Yeah, you've
like
seen
they
everything.
all do the same thing. It's all people writhing, but this really does it in kind of like the only other way I've ever seen it, where it's like kind of a slow thing, and like Jesse, it's not like a devil possession movie, I guess, which like kind of switches it up, but it's like Jesse's kind of being used as like a conduit for Freddy, which is kind of how we get gay shit, you know. We got like lots of lines of like, he's trying to get into my body and he wants to come all over my face, you know, like lots of gay shit like that. But he says he doesn't want to use a condom. What should I do?
We were actually both saying this earlier, specifically talking.
I get AIDS in your sleep, Jesse. Sorry.
AIDS with a Z. No, I think what we were talking about, we were explaining this earlier, is that in this movie we don't really believe it's subtext or sort of underlying. It's very clear to the viewer, at least nowadays, because when I was a lot younger, obviously I kind of really didn't pick up on that at all. I just seen it as another Freddy Krueger movie, but like now, like you just can't ignore it. It's really kind of there in your face most of the time. I mean, that whole bedroom scene where he's like cleaning up his room and he's like pushing his butt up against the doorknob.
I love that song. That scene alone, right? That scene where we kind of get like a look around at Jesse's room. So we're just gonna like kind of jump right in and kind of explore, right?
Let's get into it.
This movie takes place in the future. I was gonna say, it does, because this movie is 5 years after Nightmare on Elm Street, but they only came out a year apart. You know, like the timeline in these movies is fucked up. Like we'll get to it one day. I think once we get to like Freddy's Dead, like Nightmare 6 is where like the timeline really starts to kind of fall apart and not make sense. But like whatever. So we jump in, and we get like Jesse being like a full Gary Newman on the bus, like being like full emo, like sitting at the back. He actually does look a lot like Gary Newman.
Yeah.
Played by Mark Patton,
Legend,
famous actor.
Scream Queen.
That is another one of the reasons why I feel like this movie, like, there's no way that they could have made it and not made it gay, because Mark Patton being like a gay actor at the time, doesn't make any like qualms about appearing straight. Let's just say that. Like, he very much is so a Scream Queen. Go watch that documentary after listening to this. It's great. It kind of like goes into how actually important this movie is for horror / kind of cinema, you know? Like, up until this point, I kind of can't recall seeing a quote like male damsel in distress, you know, or a male Scream Queen. Like, he is the first male Scream Queen, you know? And he lives up to that name in this movie. He does a lot of, I'll call it shrieking.
It's a lot of sort of flailing hands about, you know, up against the banisters, like screaming his head off. And like, I gotta admit, like, I love the kind of switch up that, like, really kind of, it does, like, because this film is very much set apart from, obviously, the subsequent sequels and the movie before it, in the way that, like, it really does kind of put you in the seat of someone either struggling with their sexuality or struggling with trying to be a masculine male in a male-dominated society. Does that make sense? It very much kind of pushes men into a corner where they have to be the strong person in the relationship, and it, like, this film kind of says, no, you don't have to be that way. You can lean on anyone and still find help, because I know, like, it's very much pointed out, like, every time that, you know, Meryl Streep, the girlfriend character, comes in, she goes, let me help you. She goes, let me help you. Like, every single time, like, everyone is turning us like, let us help you, let us do what we can for you, and we'll hold you up. And he sort of continuously rejects that because, well, either number one, he's struggling with his sexuality, or it's the damsel in distress idea where he doesn't know how to express the sort of fact that he can't be that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you actually kind of just touched on it there. I am kind of obsessed with the dynamics of Jesse and everybody around him in this movie. Like, besides his family or whatever like that. And his family, I'm just going to say, his dad in this movie is fucking hilarious. There's a scene where one of the birds one of the birds, like, attacks the other bird in the cage and then flies around the room and then explodes. And he goes to the mom. He's like, it's that cheap seed that you're buying. He blames the mom for buying cheap bird food. and then, like, 2 scenes later, the toaster goes on fire, which is like the day after their bird blew up. He goes, that's the strangest thing I've ever seen. That's the strangest thing you've ever seen. And your bird just spontaneously combusted like a day ago. What are you, fucking crazy?
I love that. They actually
I love the dynamic between, like, Jesse and Lisa and Jesse and Grady. For some reason, the dynamic between Grady and Jesse is, like, super funny to me. And, like, kind of nice, because it's like you assume Grady is just going to be, like, this, like, macho, like, asshole, like, jock dude, because that's kind of like how they set him up. And there's a scene where Jesse falls asleep in class and, like, there's a snake around his neck, whatever like that, and he does the funniest yell when he, like, because it's just a close-up and he just goes, no, like, with his eyes closed, and then everybody's laughing at him, but he, like, looks over to Grady and Grady's, like, laughing at him, and Jesse does this thing where he, like, has, like, a little side smirk and just, like, gives him, like, the finger or whatever. Not in a sexual way, although I'm sure he wouldn't mind. But I love that, like, they actually become friends, and
Yeah.
everybody is like super supportive of Jesse, you know? Even
Yeah.
Lisa, who is kind of his like romantic opposite in this movie, I guess, is very much so like, look, no, like, I'm gonna listen to you, like, tell me how you feel, like, we're gonna like figure this out together, like, very big like fag hag energy, like, look, I'm gonna date you so nobody knows, but like, if you want to make it up, that's fine, you know?
Yeah, I really do. I appreciate the subtext, and I know that the writers did kind of put into the film. They did write in the homoerotic subtext specifically for that reason, because they did want to really start increasing like visibility and things like that. And I really appreciate that, because at the time, this was what, the mid to late 80s, I want to say. No, sorry, the early to mid 80s. So like they were
literally
really,
the most mid 80s you can get. 85.
85. And yeah, I really do appreciate that kind of the subtext, the specific writing of the subtext. I really do appreciate it.
Great. I love it. No, for real though, I think like this movie, like people can kind of, it kind of has a reputation for being like very camp, which is true, but also I think like again, like on this podcast, camp is not a bad word. I think
Camp is a compliment.
Camp is not a 4-letter word, except for the fact that it is. But no, for real, I think like the story is actually one of the stronger movies from the Nightmare series. I think it really does stand apart. It's like quite unique because of the angles that it takes. But also, it's one of the only, if I'm not mistaken, because I think Nightmare 6 might also have kind of like half a male like protagonist. It's also the first time where the person being chased or whatever like that is male. In the rest of these movies, the kind of protagonist to Freddy's antagonist is always female. And like very typically in horror, as we have seen and will see in the future, the protagonist is nearly always female. So it sets up a dynamic of like female versus male, because the killer in these movies is nearly exclusively male. But then to kind of switch up the dynamic and have it be male versus male, and then have the hero in the end not be man but to be a woman, it really kind of like turns everything on its head, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I fucking love this movie.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were like. No, the one note I had about this bus scene was actually the fact that they fucking use miniatures in this is hilarious to me. Hilarious, bro. Like that.
They look good though. They look really good.
They really do. I gotta praise the special effects in this, and the one special effect that I always absolutely loved was when Freddy was possessing Jesse in Grady's bedroom, and he like slits open his stomach so Freddy can like rise
it just
out.
falls apart.
I fucking
so
love
good.
that shot. It is so fucking cool, and I just love the way like Freddy stands up and Jesse just like collapses backwards. I love it.
Yeah,
it's
it just
beautiful.
falls to the side.
But this miniature is a little hokey cokey to me, and it does kind of show its age now. And like the fake lightning, what? I can't.
You would know.
Yeah. I love it because it's so hokey cokey. It's so hodgepodge, and yeah, I just can't. Also, the two girls that are on the bus with him, they're fucking cunts. They're literally like turning around looking at Jesse and actively bitching about him.
They're the only 3 people on the bus as well. They're sitting maybe like 4 seats ahead of him, and they're like, look at the freak on the bus. And then they both turn around and look at him and are like, hee. And then Robert Englund, like, who plays the bus driver, like very briefly, I don't think we even really like get to see him properly. It's like, homophobia? Not on my bus. Bitch, you're missing your stop. She said, driver, that's my stop. He said, bitch, you're dead. Don't talk about this bag to me.
Bo, no, you're
Jesse doesn't die in the stream. The 2 girls do.
Yeah.
Freddie said, gay rights, okay?
confirmed on their here
Freddy
podcast.
Krueger threw the first brick at Stonewall. Okay?
Freddy Krueger is an ally. Yes, Queen. Love you.
They burned Freddy Krueger because he had sex with men, not little boys.
Yeah.
Okay? Freddy Krueger is a queer icon. Let's just say that.
He is a gay icon. I really gotta like stress that. It really is. He actually is. He's full on. I mean, especially after this film, for sure. That's for fucking sure. But
he also has a huge sense of vanity. I love the fact that like even after death and even after becoming like a dream demon, he still has like some vanity because he wears a hat. Like he wears a hat to like cover his burn scars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I love that. Like Freddy can take any form, but he likes that outfit. You know?
This was something that we did mention the last time in our previous episode with A Nightmare on Elm Street, the original film, that Freddy's stripes, the red and green sweater, is actually they are actual nightmare colors. They clash horribly because the eyes can't look at them in a very specific way, and it creates nausea and headaches apparently. So I love that fact that they still kept it, and like Freddy's just like, yes, not only am I making nightmares, I am giving this bitch a headache.
Freddy Krueger is not only gay, he's also a psych major and has studied color theory, you know?
That color wheel, he was
I
like,
remember learning
no.
that and thinking like, holy shit, like that's so interesting. And also like, it's just like an extra level of detail that you kind of like might not have picked up on.
Yeah, you know? For sure. The one thing I do want to point out about that bus scene is the fact that Jesse, as Mark Patton's character, when Jesse is sitting there on the bus, he looks uncomfortable for most of the time, and you don't know why until, of course, much later. But when they drive out into the desert, when it's revealed it's Freddy and all of that, the one thing I really noticed was Jesse doesn't look surprised that it's Freddy. So to me, it sort of says like he's already dreamt of Freddy before, if that makes sense. Because when Freddy shows up, he's like, it's like, oh shit, it's this guy again. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't look like, oh my god, oh my god. Oh, no. He's like literally...
Yeah, because two girls are like, what is this?
They're freaking out, and Jesse is like, oh no. Like, he's already aware it's Freddy. Do you know what I mean? Or not even like the character, his name, but just like he's seen Freddy in his dreams already. And we get the hint that Mark Patton, Jesse's character, has already seen him and has had previous nightmares about this dream demon before, you know?
Well, I always kind of liked that setup with Nightmare. It's very kind of similar like with Tina. Like in the first Nightmare, when like we're introduced, like, because that movie also starts in a nightmare but is not explicitly stated to be a nightmare. We already know that like that wasn't Tina's first dream either. And then I loved the idea that it's like people, and Jesse is also the only one to have Freddy dreams in this movie, which again is very out of formula. And Freddy is like it's weird. It is kind of an inverse almost. It almost is like a weird, like polar opposite to the last movie, where the protagonist is now male instead of female. It's one person having a dream, and the last movie was about Nancy trying to pull Freddy out of her dream into the real world, and this is now about Freddy trying to pull himself into the real world. I think like it also kind of shows us that like Freddy has like learned, but also thinking about it now, I'm like, what's Freddy's motive? Because you're like corporeal, you're mortal in the real world. You're not supposed to want to be here. I actually never fucking thought about that before until literally this second, where I'm like, what's his game plan for when he gets out? Because also the logic. Damn, like this podcast has made me ruin a bunch of movies for myself. Where I'm like, wait, what the fuck is the point? Because at the end, at the pool party, he still has like Freddy powers, but like in the real world, and everybody can see him.
Yeah.
What's his end though? You're more powerful as a dream demon. Why are you here?
Yeah. I got to admit, I really sort of appreciate like how Freddy has still has a sense of the theatrics when he comes into the real world, because this bitch literally walks up and is like throwing plates on the floor, pushing over tables, like blowing up some lights and shit. And I gotta say, I love that Turner is like that when he kills that one guy, and like that flamethrower shit shoots up into the thing, and he's got his arms and he goes, "You're all my children
You're
now."
all my children.
I love that shot. Like, those are my two favorite moments, is that shot there, that "you're all my children." He's like backlit from the flames, and you can see the knives and the burnt hat, and Jesse turning into Freddy after killing Jesse, or Grady. Like, those are my favorite moments from this movie for sure. And also those weird fucking baby-faced dogs and the cat and the mouse weird thing.
It's funny. Like, Jesse didn't come out of the closet, but Freddy came out of the closeted.
God, I love that. Oh,
I thought that was those like Rottweilers with like baby face masks on. I thought that was like an Invasion of the Body Snatchers reference.
Yeah, I thought it
There's a
was,
scene like that.
because my only point of reference for them was that the film, that The Uninvited, about that the Dybbuk demon that like took the form of a dog with a head twisted round the other way. Like, that's the only thing I thought of when I seen them. But I also think it's just so strange and out of character for like this film, like, because they show up and then they're never seen again. So like I just didn't get it. I didn't know what they meant. I don't know.
I think like we find like kind of with sequels, and again, this being our first sequel, we're kind of diving into new territory now. I think like with sequels, especially a good one like this, that I think like people do still enjoy.
Oh yeah, I fully still enjoy this movie. I think
that they're kind of finding their ground, and also again, like Wes Craven is absent in this movie. Wes Craven actually kind of had nothing to do with this. He didn't want it to be a franchise, so it's under new management, I guess. Sorry, I'm like literally being gross. I'm like,
yeah, it was written by David Chaskin, so yeah, he really Craven really didn't want much of anything to do with this film. That much I know. And he actively like fought against, do you remember, like, he actively fought against the ending for the film with the chassis turning into like the colors of Freddy Krueger and stuff. So like he really just wanted it like, case shut, closed,
like
done.
Closed.
Yeah.
Book.
Yeah. Which I
which is crazy, because I think like
in hindsight I would agree, considering like how comical Freddy became toward the end, and like how unscary and uninspired he was. But like, I mean, versus the first 2-3 movies. Well, I mean, like, when you have Freddy literally like kicking back with his feet up on a desk, like literally playing a fucking video game of turning a person to jump up and down and then die in a hole. Like,
I'm playing with power. Yeah.
So uninspired.
No, but like I think like, okay, I don't think Nightmare on Elm Street and Freddy himself would have become as iconic without at least these first 3 movies.
Yeah. No, I would agree. I just, like I said, like, after this film, it sort of just goes really quite of left field, and it, like, the movies sort of really do show their age, and but I still got to admire the fact that it's very smart, written by David Chaskin, and then Jack Sholder directed it, and like really kind of gave that extra subtext to it. So, but yeah, no, I agree with you, but I also do think, like, as the years went on, Freddy did turn into a comical character and just very uninspired. Yeah, I really do. Like, they sort of
I'm
milked it for all it
inspired.
was. I do. I totally think that. I think as the movies progressed, he became completely unscary. He sort of became sort of a parody of himself as to what he was, you know? And that's my opinion, baby, and I'm going off script and I don't care.
We at Their Hair LLC do not share or support these views. Sorry, I'm literally like molting. I got so severely sunburnt the other day.
Oh,
and
come
now
on,
my
Freddy
shoulder is coming
Krueger.
off.
Come on, Freddy Krueger.
Oh my God, yeah,
Yes.
very appropriate. The burn scars are coming through, the sleepy faggot. Holy shit!
The
Oh my God,
actual
I'm so
first
burned.
thing I really do want to get to was that breakfast scene where his little sister turns to say, God, why can't Jessie just sleep like the rest of us? And she's got this like box of cereal called Fu Manchus.
It's Fu Manchus. Yeah.
And she gets like this prize. She's like looking for the prize, and it's those witch's nails things. And I just love.
I was this
Yes,
kid.
yes.
There was nary a week where you wouldn't find me without a set of plastic or rubber fucking like creature claws
Yeah.
on. You know what I mean? Just to be able to, I think I've said this before, but like we'll get to it when we get to Evil Dead. There's a scene in Army of Darkness where one of the Deadites, the Pit Witch, just like reaches her hand up out of the thing. I did that shit incessantly if I had a pair of like rubber finger claws, you know?
Yeah. I really do.
Just to like see it move, you know?
Oh my God. Yeah. Yes. I love it. I also think that like the look that Mark Patton makes when like she takes out the gloves or the fingernails and puts them on, and I love it. He's just like, God, I wish I was that bitch.
Triggered.
That's the Freddy. That's the
No, I
gay
love
Freddy
that, though.
coming
I love
out
like
of him.
little touches like that in movies, you know. Like I know it's stupid and it's like kind of small or whatever like that, but even the fact of like going through, like creating a cereal brand that like is like close enough to Freddy, but isn't literally like a box of Freddy-O's or whatever the fuck, you know what I mean? Like I love those touches like that. But like,
yeah,
that breakfast scene is fucking hilarious because it just pans down and it's like this like super all-American family like having breakfast or whatever, and then we just hear Jessie from upstairs like, like freaking out. And he like they very much so do treat him like a girl in this movie, like how they typically would treat a girl.
Yeah,
because he gets out of bed in like tidy whities and like readjusts himself. Like we get to like see it all, and this dude every single time he's in this room is like somebody just threw a bucket of water over him. He is sweating.
yeah.
Again, very me. It's roasting up here right now.
Yeah, it's like that sort of dead heat thing is consistently done throughout this movie. Even at one point where he wakes up and it's so hot in the house that like I think his lampshade is melting. There's a melting dildo on the table. The vinyl thing.
Yeah, exactly. His rubber face is melting. Yeah.
I also love that Dali reference with the vinyl that's just melting down over the table, complete 180. I love that. I think that's so cool. I love a good Dali reference. Yeah, I think these sort of dream there's not that actually many. I think there's only 2 dream sequences. The first one is the bus at the beginning, and then the second one is the kill for me, I've got the brawn, you've got the brains type thing. But that's the only 2 dream sequences. Everything else is done in actual physical plane of existence.
Like in person.
Yeah. Like nothing else happens in dreams. So like when it goes to Nightmare on Elm Street, there's not that many Nightmares on Elm Street these days.
No. And it's also weird. This is kind of where we get like the establishment of this house, like Nancy's house, and I think it's 1408 or whatever like that.
Yeah.
This particular house being important to the Freddy lore, not just the like the main character or whatever like that. Like this house is like kind of important to Freddy's mythology. I think we'll find in, again, Nightmare 6. I don't know why I'm referring to that one because it's literally the worst one. Find out like that was like Fred Krueger's old house, so like it's kind of like starting to set up lore and all that kind of stuff. And it's also where he was like defeated the first time.
Yeah.
You know, so he like has beef with like chicks that live in this fucking house, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's even the house in Freddy vs. Jason. I think Laurie in that movie is living in.
Oh yeah, she's like 1428 Elm. Yeah, she is. Yeah, that's crazy to me. Yeah, I do love the consistency with these films, but I'm not gonna rehash that argument. But this woman, Jesse's quote unquote fag hag, I'm gonna say, this Kim Myers, she was specifically hired because she looks like Meryl Streep, and this woman, when she wants to, she is a fucking Meryl Streep stand-in. I'm not even lying. Like every single time she was on screen, I was like, that's Meryl Streep. That is fucking Meryl Streep.
Yeah, like we were even saying earlier before recording that it's like, I just referred to myself as we. I referred to myself in like the fourth person. I was saying like she has like down to the specifics Meryl Streep's face. Like the bone structure, the nose, the eyes, the kind of the voice, the chin, everything is so Meryl Streep. It's unreal.
Yeah.
Like I don't think that she could look any more like Meryl Streep.
Yeah.
Without literally being Meryl Streep.
There's like this whole thing. I even said this to you earlier. I was like, in almost all shots, she literally looks like she needs to take the heaviest shit of her life in each of these scenes.
Jesse!
Oh, Jesse!
Yeah.
Fight him, Jesse! Oh, fight it! Oh.
But yeah, I find their dynamic at the very start, like not their dynamic, but their relationship kind of weird because he's like the new kid and she's like the popular chick, but she's also like super rich and he like isn't supposed to be. I think Elm Street is supposed to be kind of like not a nice-ish place to live or whatever, like that, like kind of generally. But she goes all the way from like way the fuck across there to his house to get a lift to school. I don't get it.
I really love, like you said, like the dynamic just doesn't really make sense. But I also think it's sort of breaking those stereotypes, those very early 80s stereotypes of the cool kid and this and the jock and blah blah blah. I do think it's great at like breaking those stereotypes because she almost immediately, like, she's very much in love with Jesse. Jesse obviously having a very kind of platonic relationship with her. It's just very like, how do I say it? It's a very strange dynamic, and then just the fact that it continuously gets broken down is just interesting to me. I like this sort of breaking of stereotypes, or at least the horror movie stereotypes.
Yeah, it's very much so kind of like out of the norm. Sorry, I think I turned my camera off and I was like, it's very much so kind of like out of the norm to have the new kid not just exclusively be like bullied to bits. Like he is kind of at the start just because like generally that's how it goes for new kids, but all the people that are kind of picking on him become like the friend group, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like again with Grady, it's like I think Grady is kind of the most surprising one, but Grady is also like the love interest in a way. Like there's a weird what's that called again? I was gonna call it a romantic triangle. What's a love triangle? Romance pyramid. Yeah. Between Freddy, Jesse, and Grady.
And Freddy ultimately wins because Grady gets the whole
the whole face, like, baby.
Yeah.
Up to the elbow, honey.
He is technically fisted.
And can I also just point out, and even as a kid, this always bothered me. In Grady's bedroom, he has leather bed sheets.
Oh god. Okay, so let's get like right into all the, it's like, since like we're really on it, let's get into it. Let's get into all the homoerotic references in this film, because it is a huge part as to why we're having it as as our second pick of Pride Month. So the one
this
biggest
movie
thing
to me is just as queer as Rocky Horror Picture Show, and I don't know how people ever thought otherwise.
Yeah.
There's a leather bar like scene in this movie, you know? Like, those women are talking to women. Those women are not talking to other men. You know what I mean? I can see that man's nipples.
You know, there are drag artists in that bar. There is Robert Bob Shea. Bob fucking Shea, who also, by the way, wanted to play Mr. Grady, just so you know, was like, is a fucking leather daddy at the fucking bar, and like, he doesn't say anything, but he just he does it so nonchalantly. When Jesse like arrives like in his pajamas, soaking wet, Bob Shea just literally like grabs the beer, fucks it onto the table, pops the cork, and then like uses his index finger to like flick a glass
squat over it and slowly takes the whole beer bottle.
Yeah.
No, it's weird, and I actually really like Bob Shea's outfit in this scene.
Wow.
Because he's got the huge like leather cuffs like from wrist to elbow with like the spikes all over him and stuff like that. Like, he's like full Judas Priest, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Very much so gay leather fantasy. And this scene is so weird, and like, again, this is another scene, like, this is like one of the gayest scenes, leads into another one of the gayest scenes where Jesse is like walking around. Oh no, Jesse gets caught by their fucking coach Snyder, who people have always like said kind of like in this movie or whatever like that. And they're like, watch out, he loves like pretty boys like you and hangs out around in queer S&M joints downtown. I also love the fact that like Springwood has a gay leather bar. Not only does it have a dream clinic, it also has a gay leather bar. What the fuck? So Jesse's like having a beer, and his teacher, like his coach, just rocks up behind him in also a leather vest. And it's like, I don't think so, boy. And then basically it's like, you better get your ass to school. Brings him to school in the middle of the night. And like, Jesse walks into this bar and he's like soaking wet already from walking there in the rain. And he leaves his house because he goes downstairs to get a glass of water, and his like drying rack is like struck by lightning. And then he's like what? And just walks to the queer S&M joint downtown. So yeah, he's brought to school by Coach Snyder, who, like, I thought as a kid was like cute, because I also get to see his butt. Like, I don't think like this is one of the first times I think I'd ever seen like a naked dude or whatever in a movie. And he like is basically like making Jesse just like go run laps or whatever like that around the school. Yeah. And it's kind of implied that like he's about to like rape Jesse, you know, but it might not be rape because Jesse might like it, kind of, you know.
Yeah, I do want to say about this whole scene to me, because it always evoked a dream-like quality to this scene, and I never really understood as to whether it was a dream or not. Do you know what I mean? Because it was very much like he was drawn to that to the bar, then he was suddenly brought back to the school because normal people wouldn't do that, I guess, and then he's murdered in the showers. So I always got this sense that like this is something that would just happen in a dream. Do you know what I mean? And it's not ever specifically implied that it was a dream or not, whether it happened or didn't, but it's just never specifically implied that it could have been a dream. Do you know what I mean? And
well, it like very much so did happen, and like Coach Snyder, it like is found the next day.
Fuck my drag, I guess.
Well, it's not though. I'm just saying, like, I'm giving you like more concrete kind of like evidence, like, to your question, because like I think again like the motive for Freddy is like weird and is never actually explained. All we know is that Freddy really wants to get into this boy's body, and that's kind of his whole motive. But I think the reason why things are happening in person again is because Jesse is now like the conduit, you know, Freddie's able to like work through him, which again like makes no sense to me because I'm like, like just do your shit in dreams. That's your entire power, bro.
Yeah.
Like, what do you gain from getting it in person? And I actually find it weird, again, just kind of thinking, I actually took like nearly no notes for this movie. Like, this is very like by the fly of my pants. People know about Freddie in this because Nancy only, like, people keep talking about Nancy as the girl who went crazy when she saw her boyfriend get butchered across the street.
Yeah.
But like, these people are only like 4 years younger than Nancy would be. So like, why don't they know any of this shit that happened? You know, like nobody knows about the entire friend group that got wiped out. You know, it's like it's the show's daughter as well. You know, I suppose she didn't die. And then this movie completely retconned the end of the first movie as well.
Yeah, it does. I was looking at this scene, I'm like, because they consistently reference Nancy had a diary apparently, and this is never, ever, ever mentioned in the first film at all. That
big Anne Frank fan, was she?
Yeah, big Anne Frank fan over there. And when
and like, frankly, I don't give a fuck.
But I gotta look at it as this is what the writers probably wrote themselves into a corner, because they were like, well, oh shit, how do we provide backstory and how do we, do you know what I mean? And I was like, the only way they could probably do that was by literally telling the audience, who may or may have not seen the first film, and obviously the characters, who this person is, because who this person is and why they're doing it and all of blah blah blah. And it was like, oh, if you had only skipped to a few pages more, you would have realized that Freddy's this and he's because of that, and this is how you kill him. And then, you know, it's just a classic case of you should have been Annie in fucking Hereditary and just looked down into the
exactly, just explore a little further.
Yeah, and
but
you
yeah,
like
the last page of Nancy's diary is because we also get that Nancy was like locked away, but we get in the third movie that she's didn't get locked away. Which again is also, she's a psychiatrist with the biggest hair of all time. She also gets like a fucking like Bride of Frankenstein streak in her hair in the third movie. But again, like that was written by Wes Craven. Wes was like, okay, this movie actually can kind of like make me some fucking money. So like, let me come back for the third movie.
Yeah.
Let me stop this queen shit. Okay. But yeah, if Jessie had flicked to like the last page of her diary, it's literally like, just say you don't believe in him and turn around the point and you're going out. Yeah, exactly. Because again, like I always forget that it's like that's how she literally defeats Freddy.
Yeah,
is by just being like,
"You shit.
Don't fucking scare me, bitch. I'm afraid of you."
I take all of it back.
She kills Freddy by not giving him attention, which is very gay.
Oh my god! Like with this whole kind of like defeating the dream demon shit, like especially at the end, and like, knowing that, like, you know, we all have that monster in the closet, quote unquote, like literally being defeated by the help of a woman, like, you know, literally like kissing him and forcefully holding him to get rid of the monster possessing him, like is just such like, the subtext of that is like, if you conform to normality, you'll go back to being everything fine. That's what I always read from like the ending to that, and I didn't necessarily think it was a happy ending based off of that subtext. Do you know what I mean? Like he's literally,
well, it's not.
Oh no, that's what I mean.
Because the actual like ending to this movie is that didn't work, and Freddy's still around.
Yeah.
And what's her fucking name? Their friend, like what was her fucking name? I actually have it here. They have a friend that kind of like pops up every once in a while where she's like, what is her fucking name again?
She like, what is it? She just pops up like for a line.
Carrie, her name is Carrie, right? She's like, great party lead. Yeah, it's so fucked up. After like all of their friends die at this fucking party, maybe like 2 days ago, she goes, great party, Lisa. Gets her fucking, like what the fuck? But then her chest just gets like blown the fuck out by a Freddy glove. But I'm like, all three of them are awake as far as we know.
Yeah.
And like I don't like. Yeah, I don't fucking know. Again, I think like these first kind of two movies, I think the third movie is really where the kind of Freddy mythos and the Freddy tropes like really hit their stride. I know that like the third movie is, I think, more people's favorite than even the first and second.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like the ultimate. And again, I think it's the one I've watched the most, the third movie.
Yeah.
Because like they establish everything like better, at least like with these first two movies. Again, they're still very much so kind of like finding their footing.
Yeah, they're very much the baby kind of face of it.
Even if you make out with a chick, you're still gay. Bye.
Well, I mean, like, speaking of that, I really want to talk about Jesse's room. Let's just talk about that room, because there is.
I know.
The amount. Let's just. I mean, first of all, on his door, it literally says on a sign, "No girls allowed." I mean, if you want.
No out of state girls allowed. And do you want to know what's directly underneath that sign? A Kate Bush poster.
Confirmation.
And then when Lisa, also, I fucking hate this. Lisa just comes over. It's sorry, I invited myself over and thought you might like some help. I don't fucking want anybody in my room while I'm cleaning.
Yeah.
Don't touch my fucking stuff.
Yeah.
Are you fucking dumb? What, are you straight? And then when she goes into his closet, which he sleeps in, there's a game called Probe.
And it lingers on that shot. Like, the whole, when he's cleaning the room, he's like backing his ass up against the knob of his dressing table, literally. And then like he's got that, I don't know what the fuck he's got, like if it's a toilet cleaner or if it's a duster or something, but he's literally like stroking it and pushing up against it, and like on the top of his bed grinding. Oh my god, like the amount
with the glasses, the little like lightning strike. No, he's like, it starts off and he like puts his little tape in. Oh my god, it's so good. And he like takes, his dad is like constantly hounding him to like unpack boxes and stuff, because they're only in this house like a week, right?
Yeah.
And he like takes this box of underwear and like throws him in a drawer, and he goes, "How do you like that, Dad?"
Yeah.
And then like takes some more like Ray-Bans out and is like, "Those aren't faggy enough. What about my gold glitter lightning strike Lady Gaga fucking like cosplay glasses?" And then puts on a little cap and like puts on a tape, and I forget who the original artist is, but Kathy Dennis did a fucking cover of this song. He puts a tape in and goes,
yeah.
And the song is like, "Touch me all night long." Yeah, it's so good. And when he is giving it socks, he's like giving it his all. And then just as Lisa and his mom walk in, again, don't just walk into my room. How dare you? That like noisemaker, like whatever it is,
yeah.
He's fully like jerking off, and then like when they walk in, and he's not even that mortified. He's just kind of like, "Oh, you caught me playing with my things," you know?
You've caught me playing dress up.
But also, this shirt, I just want to point out, the shirt he's wearing in this scene and kind of this particular day, I only noticed this I like a couple of months ago. I like called you, I think, in like a blind panic of like, "Oh my god, did you notice this?" The yellow shirt with the little crosses on it, Richie in It Chapter 2 is wearing that exact shirt. I was rewatching It Chapter 2, and I was like, I know that fucking shirt. I for sure know that shirt. And yeah, that's a reference. Again, kind of speaking to like, people widely know this is the gay movie because Richie's the gay character in that movie. I thought that was like a really, really cool, like if you know, you know. Like it was a really good like little like nod to like horror fans, you know?
Yeah.
If you suck dick and watch movies.
I appreciate that. I do. I really appreciate the fact that you get things like that. Like even other horror movies will reference other horror movies, and yeah, it's just really good. It's like finding the carpet design from The Shining hidden somewhere, you know. It's a really cool like little Easter egg to have, and all of that kind of thing. So yeah, I really do. I think this film is like, you know, I don't want to set it up on a pillar too much, but it's definitely one of these films where, like, yes, it is the gay horror movie, probably one of the, if not one of the most gayest horror movies ever. But it's definitely up there, and it's really kind of, yeah. I gotta give it props where props are due.
I don't think it's damaging either.
No.
Lots of queer horror movies are like again, like, I don't mind because it's a movie, but like a lot of things kind of like, planning out this month was actually kind of not like difficult, but it came with like some challenges, because like we're kind of, and I feel like that is changing, but we're kind of starved for queer content in horror that isn't like making gay people like or making queer people like the joke, or like super harmful. Like, we kind of played back and forth with the idea of, you know what, no, you'll find out next week when everything is put to a vote. We were kind of playing back and forth with the idea of some movies, and even though beloved by like queer audiences, can be kind of harmful, you know, because it's like people like in the know, like us, you know what I mean, or like our friend group and stuff like that, like we would have like, you know, because like again, like we're in the know or whatever like that, but like straight audiences watching a movie like Sleepaway Camp or like Silence of the Lambs or something like that, or like Dress to Kill, might like take away the wrong things from it and be left with kind of the wrong impression. But this movie makes no jokes about Jesse being gay. Yeah,
like, even though it isn't explicitly stated in the film, I mean, audiences really know now, but it's never explicitly stated in the film, but it is very much there. It's apparent. The sexual tension between Jesse and Grady is very much there. I mean, the leather bar, for example, they
pull each other's pants down in the first scene that they meet.
Yeah. And they do.
And Jesse's wearing a jock strap. That's very gay.
This is like, I would never say it's queer baiting at all because of this film, which I really do not like. Whenever I hear that word, it really is such an insult to ever kind of put the word queer baiting with this film, because it doesn't do a disservice to the gay community, specifically with gay men. It does not do much of a disservice to really kind of anyone. It doesn't insult anyone. It doesn't.
But also, I don't think that it would have benefited this movie to queer bait if that was a thing. Like, exactly. At the time, queer baiting, if anything, would have like shit all over your movie, you know what I mean? It would have made it harder for people to see the movie, you know? Like you kind of have to strike gold with something like this, or like a Rocky Horror Picture Show. It really has to be right place, right time. Yeah. You know? And again, like we kind of even said last week, sometimes the appreciation for these movies doesn't come along until much later, like widespread appreciation, you know? Sorry, I cut right across you there.
No, you're 100% right. I totally agree with you. And for the time that it was, maybe audiences didn't pick up, maybe obviously some audiences would have, and then obviously that's where it's sort of kind of grown from. So I 100% agree. I think there's a very specific context that this film has that the other Nightmare on Elm Street films don't have, and that they can very much give you the message of being gay is okay, or you know, choosing to do this or choosing to do that. You know what I mean? It is okay. Very much that. Although, like, even as I said,
I totally agree. Like, literally only 10 years before, like just kind of linking from last week's episode, this movie is like literally like exactly, well, not exactly to the date, but literally 10 years on from Rocky Horror Picture Show. So it kind of shows this slow but sure progression of how people's views on queer life, LGBTQ plus life was kind of changing. And I think like the building blocks really were movies like Rocky Horror Picture Show, or like a lot of that comes from like even non-queer kind of sources. Like I mentioned last week, David Bowie and Mark Bolan, people like that and Freddie Mercury, people like, well, I suppose Freddie Mercury like was like queer or anything like that, but these things kind of were the building blocks that like helped people kind of be like, okay, maybe these queers aren't so bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I think only 10 years later after this, we get like Bride of Chucky, where I think it's like 13 years later, we get Bride of Chucky where there's a gay character in that who isn't the joke, and it's not like explicitly like, oh, he's a fag or whatever like that. You know what I mean? He just happens to be gay. It's like you can really see, like you can really like easily pinpoint out like the progression of how people view like queer life in horror movies especially. And again, because I think, like we've said this before, horror has the license that most cinema just doesn't have to be able to make things subversive or make subtext text, you know. I believe that like a lot of these movies genuinely have helped people, you know.
Yeah. Like, I also think, like, no, I totally agree. I think that these films, like you said, like, they sort of help find an audience or help find, help certain people identify with certain things about themselves, i.e. coming to terms with either being, number one, different, number two, gay, or this or that. But it does kind of help you find, your tribe, you know, and you know it really does. It kind of helps you pull together a belief system about yourself. It just like the message was you know, with last week's episode Rocky Horror, that be true to yourself. This film is very much yourself as well. It's like express who you are, and that's very much the spirit of this film, at least in my opinion. From what I see, is like there's no point in hiding it, because the only person that does suffer is you. And I think the way Jesse does suffer is exactly that. Like, when he isn't expressing himself, Freddy comes out, and when he does express himself, like Freddy sort of loses his power. Does you know what I mean?
Exactly. Like this, the message of this movie, like the message I kind of take away, and I am gathering that you take away as well, is kind of like find the right support system. Like friends are can be just as, if not more important to you when growing up than family, you know. And like you even said last week, I really liked that you were like, because like you don't identify as queer or anything like that, but like Rocky Horror very much so like kind of informed your like otherness. Like again, like if like our friend group, like you guys obviously don't know this, but like our friend group are like we are the weirdest mister, but like we are like kind of like the little like freaks from our town or whatever like that all kind of banded together. And like we said, like I said, like the least weird thing about me is that I'm gay. You know what I mean? Like I'd still be a freak if I didn't suck dicks. But I do. And I do it very well.
Yeah,
I would definitely. We all came together as our little chosen family.
Yeah, like it's our platonic relationship. That's actually something so really, really interesting, is that this is where the friend support system, like, because like all of his friends are incredibly just like, none of his friends say he's crazy. Everyone says, let's come together, let's work it out, let's find out and help you. Whereas it's so strange that, like you just said there, like you might not find it in your family, because both Jesse's parents turn around and say, you know what, maybe he's an alcoholic, maybe he's on drugs, or maybe he's just fucking crazy. And like all of his friends are the support system. And I think that's what a real message about this film is. It's like, when you find your tribe, when you find your real family and your friends, those people that you hold on to, like that will be your support system for the rest of your life. And you'll know that you're loved, you're accepted, no matter what you're from or what your background is. And that's really the truth of what, at least in my opinion, this film is, you know?
You know, I very much so get that reading. And like obviously seeing this as a kid, you don't fucking pick up on any of the I just became dyslexic. You don't pick up on any of that shit. Timestamp. Gonna cut that dead ass. Cut the cameras. Dead ass. No, but for real, yeah, kind of rewatching it this time, and kind of watching it through like an analytical eye for probably like the first time, I really do take that away, that like the strength in this movie comes from like Jesse's friends. You know, like if you look at Jesse and Lisa's relationship as platonic and non-romantic, because I don't even think they kiss like once in this movie, and it is horrific for Jesse.
Yeah.
Like again, like Freddy is kind of a huge metaphor in this movie. Freddy is almost not even in this movie.
Yeah, I said he's the monster, you know, quote unquote, the monster in the closet. Yeah, exactly. Like that's exactly what he is. He represents
very much
it.
so. And at the end of this movie, again, if you kind of take Lisa and Jesse's relationship as strictly platonic, what saves Jesse is the power of friendship.
Yes,
you know,
does.
what gets Jesse what brings Jesse out of his shell is the power of friendship.
Come out of your shell, Pearl.
And I think it's really, really wholesome, you know? I think that's like...
Wake up,
But again,
Pearl.
it doesn't show... It shows that there can't be, like, joy at the end of it. Yeah. It shows that there, like, can be joy at the end of it if you just find the right people to surround yourself around, you know? Yeah. And, like, his family, I don't think his family are, like, bad. They just don't know what to do for him. Like, they're not the help that he needs. Yeah. You know?
Or wants.
Yeah, no, that dad is actually a dick. That dad is like kind of a prick. Because then, I forgot to say, at the in that scene where the birds explode or whatever like that, he's like, "You set this up, did you? You little faggot! You fucking put cherry bombs in our birds." You know? No, he's like, "I bet you used firecrackers." And then he comes to the conclusion. He's like, "No, you know what he did? You know what he did with him? He used a cherry bomb because that's gay."
I love that. I always think of like the dad. I was like, what the fuck does he think Jesse did? Do you think Jesse like got his finger and shoved the cherry bomb down the fucking bird's throat as I do this?
Very gay. Yeah. Very erotic.
I just don't get it. I don't know how his dad came to that conclusion.
You know, for real. This movie is like unintentionally like hilarious at some points. Like there's a scene at the end kind of where like the pool party scene is going down or whatever, and Freddy is like that's one thing you like kind of never thought like seems so out of place. Freddy Krueger at a pool party / barbecue, you know what I mean? But like at one point, because everybody can see him, one guy comes up and tries to like rationalize. He's like, okay, "Bro, you need to like chill. Are you all right?" And like goes up and tries to like, "Come on, just chill." And like approach him, and Freddy's like, anyway, and like throws him across the bed. I think he like throws him onto the barbecue and like fucks everything up. It's great. Yeah. But I also think this is like one of the highest kill like body counts of a nightmare movie, because Freddy typically only kills maybe like half of like the main teenage cast in a movie, like give or take like one or two. But in this, he's like killing bitches. He's like roasting people every place. And again, in the third movie, this event is like never referenced again, where that Freddy came into the real world, killed a bunch of teenagers in front of people, and like got away with it. Nobody else is ever like, do you remember that guy who was burned, who showed up, killed a bunch of our friends, and then vanished? And then nobody ever like blames Jesse, even though Jesse was the one that literally did it. I think I'm kind of getting the reading that like we're supposed to like get that they're seeing Jesse do all this, but we're as the audience, we're seeing Freddy do it, so we understand. But I think that they're seeing Jesse do it. Yes. Because Jesse and Freddy can't like separate in a way. Yeah. Like Freddy can't be in the real world without it being Jesse. But then also I also thought about that when I was watching. I was like, wait, so does Grady just have like like a husk of Jesse on his floor. Like, what happens? Like, is there just like an empty carcass shell of Jesse on Freddy's floor?
Yeah.
And why did the police never be like,
why is there an empty skin sack over
is
there?
that a human suit on your floor? Yeah, exactly. You know, like Jesse doesn't like go to jail or anything. And I kind of wish that we got more of like a follow-up on Jesse in the third movie. Maybe like a something. Because they never ever reference this movie again.
Yeah. It's
actually no, once. They referenced this movie once in New Nightmare when Robert Englund as Freddy like comes out and is like when he comes out to like do the interview with Heather Langenkamp on the show like as himself, because that movie is like super meta. He like outstretches his arms and is like, "You're all my children now." But that's the only reference we get to this movie besides the movie itself, which I kind of hate. I would have wanted like a little like something, you know? Like, I almost would have liked if Jesse had actually gone down for the murders and then everybody kind of, like, forgot about the fact that it was Freddy because Jesse was, like, sentenced or something.
Yeah.
Ooh, that could have been a cool idea.
That would be, like, honestly, that would make the most sense. Even if there was, like, you know, a reference to, like, we may not have even seen it. We could have heard, like, a court case on the radio or on TV, like, you know, you're one that dies from "Welcome to Prime Time, bitch." Like, you could have had a little snippet on that saying Jesse blah 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 sentenced to prison 5 years after the deaths of X, Y, and Z. You know, that would have been fine. Yeah,
exactly.
For me.
Like, give him what they gave Nancy in this movie, like just a little like sprinkling, you know. Yeah. Also, that scene in Nightmare 3, like Zsa Zsa Gabor is fully just like fully gets attacked by Freddy on that in that scene. It's great.
Yeah.
I love Nightmare 3.
Yeah.
And like there isn't actually like I think 6 is probably the only one that I'm very like about, because I think it's the most like boring, I guess. But like as a whole, like I love this series. This was one of my favorites as a kid.
Yeah, on the whole, it does feel good. I had to get it in there.
Up to the elbow, on the whole, I would say, Well, yeah, so I think we've kind of like touched base on all we've had to say. I, no surprise, loved this movie. I knew I would, because I did. I finally got you to do a sequel. Fucking finally. We will eventually make our way through the Nightmare series.
Unless you can't tell.
Don't expect like a fucking coconut corn.
Unless you can't tell, I am rolling my eyes, but go ahead.
I don't know. I fucking love a sequel. We're like that's like so one of the reasons why we started this podcast, because as much as we agree on shit, we're so polar opposite on other shit. Like, I'm very much so, I want like 15, very much so like, I don't even think you needed to make the first one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for real. Okay, so next week, what do you got for me, Lee?
Viewer's choice, once again. Yeah, we're going to leave this one up to y'all, because the slab this month is already predestined. We've already chosen that. So we are going to give you the option, as you well know. I am going to give you Sleepaway Camp, 1983, fabulous movie. I love it. So Bunks and the Showers are a mad stabbers beat at a summer camp strictly for teens. I can't even say that like with a straight face, because I don't have one. I never had a straight face. Drawing. And Nathan, what's your option?
So I'm picking the absolute like fucking classic vampire movie that like we went and watched this on was it on Halloween? No, it's not. It wasn't on Halloween, but it was quite close to Halloween.
It was the 27th 2 years ago. It was part of the Bram Stoker Festival.
God, I fucking love this movie. It's probably one of my all-time favorite movies. The Lost Boys,
Same.
1987. Two brothers move to a picturesque California coastal town, Santa Carla, and soon begin to realize murder capital of the world. And soon begin to realize that the local renegade band of bikers are more dead than alive. So, these are your two options. By all means, we will have it up on the Instagram for you to vote on. And as always, if you have any comments, movies that you want us to retrospect, even a topic that you're thinking we should discuss, by all means, leave it in the comment section below. Let us know what you think. Like, subscribe, and make sure to follow us on our Instagram for some daily social content. So, yes, that's us. We've been
They're here. And I think this is most appropriate on an episode like this. Unpleasant dreams.
Oh, God. Because of course that was going
You
to be...
can't disrespect me on Pride Month, Nathan.
Well,
Pride Month
okay.
means to do everything a gay person says.
Look, I'll give it to you this one time because, number one, we've got a nightmare movie, and number two, it's gay pride. So this is the last time you get to do it, at least in my opinion. Whether you're going to do it or not is another thing entirely.
Once again, it's Pride Month, so I don't respect hetero opinions. See you guys next week. I'm going to go moisturize myself with hetero tears.